Hello, I'm Carol, and I'm 68 years old. I'm speaking to you today from my small but perfectly organized apartment here in Milwaukee. It's not the house I lived in for over 30 years, the house where I raised my son and created a life filled with memories. That house is gone now. It was taken from me, effectively, by my own family, my son, Mark, and his wife, Sarah. You might think, how could a family do that? And for years I asked myself the same thing, over and over, in the quiet, painful hours of the night. How could the people you poured your heart and soul into, the ones you sacrificed for, turn around and leave you adrift, financially and emotionally ruined? It's a question that feels like a physical weight, doesn't it? Losing my home was more than just losing bricks and mortar. It was losing my sense of security, my history, my perceived place in the world. It stripped away a layer of my identity I didn't even realize was so tied to that address, those rooms, the familiar creak of the stairs. For a long time, I felt like a ghost, haunting a life that wasn't mine anymore. The story I'm going to tell you is about that loss, about the pain of betrayal by the people who should have loved and protected me. But it's also about what happens when the tables turn, when one of the people who benefited from my loss suddenly found herself in a desperate situation, alone and with nowhere else to go. It presented me with a choice, a difficult, complicated choice that forced me to look deep inside myself. Could I forgive? Should I help? Or was it time for life to teach a lesson that I, in my years of trying to keep the peace and please everyone, had failed to deliver? If you've ever felt taken advantage of, overlooked, or deeply hurt by someone you loved, maybe you'll understand the complexities of that moment. Maybe you'll see a reflection of your own struggles in my story. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if any part of this resonates with you. It started subtly, as these things often do, not with a bang, but with a slow, insidious creep of entitlement and expectation. I had always been the reliable one, the fixer, the one who put everyone else's needs before her own. It wasn't a conscious decision, not at first. It was just how I was raised, how I saw my role, especially after my husband, Robert, passed away unexpectedly when Mark was just graduating college. Robert had been the grounding force. He saw me, truly saw me, and appreciated everything I did, big or small. When he died, a part of my world went silent. The house, which had always felt like a shared space, suddenly felt vast and empty. Mark was there, of course, grieving his father, navigating his own young adulthood. I poured all my energy into him, wanting to make sure he felt secure, loved, and supported. He met Sarah a few years later. She was bright, ambitious, and charming. At first, I was delighted. Mark had found someone who seemed to make him happy. They were full of energy, full of plans. They talked about their dreams, their careers, their desire for a certain kind of life, a comfortable life, a successful life. I listened, I encouraged, I offered advice when asked, and sometimes, when not asked, if I thought it might help. The house was paid off. Robert and I had worked hard, saved diligently. It was our security, my security, after he was gone. There was a small inheritance, enough to live on comfortably if I was careful, and the house was the anchor of that security. Slowly, gradually, the requests started. Could they borrow the car? Could I watch their dog? Could I lend them some money until payday? They were young, I told myself, just starting out. Of course, I helped. I was his mother. That's what mothers do, isn't it? You support your children, you lift them up. The requests grew. Larger sums of money, help with rent that was suddenly too high, help with a car payment, help with credit card debt. Each time, Mark or Sarah would have a perfectly good reason, a temporary setback, a sure plan for repayment. And each time, I would dip into my savings, the savings Robert and I had built for our future, for my future. I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to be happy. Their happiness felt, in a way, like a reflection of my own success as a parent. Sarah became particularly skilled at presenting their needs as urgent, critical, and things that I could uniquely solve. She had a way of making me feel indispensable, but also subtly guilty if I hesitated. "Oh, Carol, if only we had X, everything would be fine. This just came up, and we don't know what we'll do. You're the only one we can turn to." It was a potent mix of flattery and manufactured crisis. Mark, my son, often stood by, quiet, letting Sarah do the asking. Or he would echo her points, sometimes with a weary air, as if their problems were a burden he was reluctantly asking me to share, rather than situations they had created. It felt like a team, but a team where I was the never-ending resource pool. I started saying no, occasionally. Small things. "I can't watch the dog this weekend, I have plans." The reaction was usually swift, a pout, a sigh, a subtle withdrawal of affection or communication. It was easier to say yes. The peace, the feeling of being needed, the avoidance of that quiet disapproval. It was easier to just say yes. The cost of saying no felt too high. The bigger asks came later. They wanted to start a business. It was a brilliant idea, they said, a guaranteed success. They needed startup capital. A significant amount. My stomach clenched. This wasn't a few $100s for rent. This was thousands. A large chunk of the money that was supposed to see me through retirement. Mark came to me, looking serious. "Mom, this is it. This is our chance. Sarah's put together a business plan. It's solid. We just need this initial push. We'll pay you back with interest, I promise. We'll make you proud." Sarah was there too, nodding, radiating confidence and excitement. "Imagine, Carol," she said, "your investment helping us build something amazing. You'd be part of our success story." They needed the money quickly. Opportunities wait for no one, they stressed. Banks were slow, paperwork cumbersome. They needed family, they needed me. They suggested I take out a line of credit against the house. It was standard practice, they assured me. A low interest rate. They would make the payments directly. I wouldn't have to worry about a thing. I hesitated. The house was my safe harbor. Using it as collateral felt risky. It went against everything Robert and I had worked for. But Mark looked so earnest, so hopeful. Sarah seemed so certain. They painted a picture of a future where they were successful, financially independent, and grateful to me for giving them their start. They talked about taking care of me when they made it big, buying me things, making my life easier. I wanted to believe them. I wanted my son to succeed. I wanted him to be happy with his wife. I wanted to still be the indispensable mother, the generous provider. The cost of saying no to this felt astronomical. The potential disappointment, the rupture in our relationship, the thought that I might be standing in the way of my son's happiness. It was emotional blackmail, subtle and insidious, dressed up as opportunity and family loyalty. I agreed. With a knot in my stomach, I went through the process. It felt alien, signing papers that tied my home to their venture. The money was released, transferred to their account. They were ecstatic. Thank yous flowed freely. Promises were reiterated. I felt a brief warmth, a sense of having done the right thing, the motherly thing. For a few months, they made the payments on the line of credit. They seemed busy with the new business. Updates were sparse, but positive. They were building, they said. Getting clients. Things were looking good. Then, the payments stopped. At first, it was just one missing payment. I called Mark. "Oh, Mom, sorry," he said, sounding distracted. "Just a cash flow issue this month." "We'll catch it up with the next one," Sarah echoed him, smooth and apologetic. "Just a temporary hiccup, Carol. The business is growing, but expenses are high up front. You know how it is." Another payment missed. Then another. The bank started calling me. Letters arrived. Urgent notices. The knot in my stomach tightened into a hard, painful ball. I called Mark and Sarah repeatedly. Their calls went to voicemail. Their texts were met with delayed, vague responses. "Swamped right now. Dealing with a crisis. Talk later. I drove to their apartment. Sarah answered, looking harried. Mark was in the background, avoiding eye contact. I explained the bank's calls, the notices. Sarah sighed, running a hand through her hair. Carol, we told you, the business. It's not going as planned. It's been incredibly difficult. But the house, I said, my voice trembling. The payments, you promised. Mark finally spoke, his voice flat. Mom, we can't. We used all the money, the business. It failed. I stared at them. Failed? All that money? The line of credit? What about the house? What about the loan? Sarah stepped forward, her expression shifting from harried to a strange kind of defensive pity. Carol, we are so sorry. We truly thought it would work, but there's nothing left. We have no way to make those payments. But it's my house. The words felt inadequate, a desperate cry against the rising tide of panic. We know, Mark said, his voice low. We messed up. We never meant for this to happen. Never meant? The bank didn't care about intentions. The bank cared about payments. And there were no payments. The next few months were a blur of phone calls, legal documents, sleepless nights, and a crushing weight of despair. I tried everything. I begged Mark and Sarah. I tried to find solutions. Any solution. But they were out of money, focused on their own problems. Their mounting personal debt, the failed business, their uncertain future. My problem, the loss of my home caused by their failure and their broken promises, became just another complication for them, an unfortunate side effect they seemed reluctant to even discuss. My son stood by while his wife, and he, through their actions, stripped me of my home. He didn't fight for me. He didn't find a way, any way, to fix it. He accepted the failure, and the consequence of that failure landed squarely on me. The house went into foreclosure. I remember the day I had to leave. It was a gray, cold Milwaukee morning. Packing up decades of life into boxes felt surreal, like preparing for a move that wasn't a new beginning, but an ending. Mark and Sarah offered minimal help. They were dealing with their own stress, they said. They couldn't handle being there. I didn't have anywhere to go. Not really. Friends offered temporary places, small gestures of kindness that highlighted the vastness of my loss and the emptiness left by my family. I ended up in a tiny efficiency apartment on the other side of town. It was clean, safe, but sterile. It wasn't mine in the way the house had been mine. It felt temporary, precarious. The shame was immense. How could I have been so foolish, so trusting? How could I have let them do this? I replayed every conversation, every request, every moment of hesitation I had ignored. I saw the patterns I had missed, the red flags I had rationalized away. I had been so focused on being the good mother, the supportive figure, that I had erased my own boundaries, my own needs, my own safety. Communication with Mark and Sarah became sporadic, strained. They would call occasionally, brief conversations filled with their own news, never really acknowledging the elephant in the room, the home I had lost because of them. There was no apology, no deep remorse that I could sense, certainly no offer of restitution, however impossible it might have been. It was as if by not talking about it, they could pretend it hadn't happened, or that it was just one of those unfortunate things that happen to people. I was living on a greatly reduced income. Most of my savings were gone, either lent to them or used up in the scramble to try and save the house or simply survive afterwards. I felt invisible. The woman who had hosted holidays, helped with childcare for friends' kids, volunteered at school, she was gone. Replaced by a quiet, wary woman living alone, counting pennies, trying to rebuild a life from scratch at 65. The pain settled deep in my bones. It wasn't just financial hardship. It was the pain of betrayal by the people who should have been my closest allies. It was the realization that their love, or at least their behavior, felt conditional on what I could provide, what I could do for them. When I had nothing left to give, they seemed to lose interest. I spent a lot of time alone. I read, I walked, I tried to fill the hours. The silence of the apartment was often deafening, filled with the echo of past conversations, past laughter, past promises. I felt a profound sense of injustice, a burning anger that I mostly directed inwards, at my own perceived weakness and naivety. Why hadn't I been stronger? Why hadn't I seen it? Why had I been such a doormat? These questions cycled through my mind endlessly, a destructive internal loop. I felt like a failure, not just because I had lost my home, but because I had allowed myself to be treated this way. I had taught them, through my actions, that my needs were secondary, that my boundaries were flexible, that my resources were theirs for the taking. Therapy helped. I found a wonderful therapist, Dr. Ramirez, who listened patiently to the tangled mess of my story, the years of people-pleasing, the fear of conflict, the deep-seated need to be seen as the good one, the supportive one. She helped me see the pattern, the dynamic I had been a part of creating, not just the victim of. She gently guided me towards understanding that my worth wasn't tied to their approval or my ability to solve their problems. She talked about boundaries, about the right to say no, about the importance of protecting myself. It felt revolutionary and terrifying. Saying no felt inherently selfish, wrong. My entire life, I had been praised for being generous, for being kind, for always being there. But Dr. Ramirez helped me see that generosity without boundaries is self-destruction. Kindness without self-respect is martyrdom. The process was slow. There were tears, moments of fierce anger, and moments of crippling doubt. Could I really change? Could I really stand up for myself after a lifetime of bending? The thought of confronting Mark and Sarah, of even just establishing distance, felt overwhelming. What if they reacted badly? What if they cut me off completely? The fear of losing them, even after what they had done, was still a powerful leash. But gradually, a quiet strength began to build inside me. I started with small things, saying no to minor requests from others, practicing asserting my needs in low-stakes situations. Each small success built a little more confidence. I started to see myself differently, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Someone who had been deeply hurt, but who was capable of healing, capable of rebuilding. I hadn't spoken to Mark or Sarah in several months. The last few conversations had been polite, superficial, and utterly devoid of any real connection or acknowledgement of the past. It was like a wall had gone up, built from unspoken resentments and unacknowledged pain, and honestly, the distance was a relief. It was easier to breathe without the constant underlying tension, the expectation, the fear of the next ask. Then, the call came. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something prompted me to. Hello? A hesitant voice. Carol? It's Sarah. My heart hammered against my ribs. Sarah. After all this time, my mind raced. What did she want? More money? Was she in trouble? Sarah, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Hello. She took a shaky breath. Carol, I need to talk to you. It's important. I waited. Can I see you? She asked. Her voice sounded different, small, afraid, not the confident, charming Sarah I knew. Against the voice of caution screaming in my head, the voice of the old Carol, the one who always said yes, stirred. But the new voice, the one Dr. Ramirez had helped me find, was stronger. What is this about, Sarah? I asked. It's personal. I really need to talk to you. I don't have anyone else to turn to. Those words. I don't have anyone else to turn to. They were the same words, or variations of them, she and Mark had used for years to leverage my help, my resources. A chill went down my spine. Was this another manipulation? But the fear in her voice seemed genuine. I hesitated. I had been so deeply hurt by her and Mark. My home was gone. My financial security was shattered. My trust was annihilated. Why would I open the door to her again? Sarah, I said, carefully choosing my words. After everything that happened, losing the house, I don't know if seeing you is a good idea. It's still very painful for me. A pause, a sniffle. I know, Carol. I I know we hurt you. Terribly. There's no excuse. But things are bad. Really bad. Mark is gone. He left, and I'm in trouble. Mark left? My son left his wife? This was unexpected. Mark had always seemed so devoted to Sarah, almost excessively so. What kind of trouble? I asked, cautiously. Financial, legal. Everything is falling apart. The debt from the business, from Mark's other decisions, it's all landed on me. The bank is after me. I lost my job. I can't pay rent. I'm going to be homeless, Carol. Homeless. The word hung in the air. Homeless. Just like I had felt when I had to leave my house. The irony was sharp, almost unbearable. She detailed her situation. Mark had apparently been hiding significant debts she hadn't known about. When the business failed, it wasn't just their startup capital that was gone. There were loans in Sarah's name she hadn't fully understood. Credit cards maxed out. When the pressure mounted, Mark had simply disappeared. Left the state. Left her to deal with the wreckage. She had no family nearby, no close friends she could rely on for long-term help. She had burned bridges, she admitted, with others too, over the years. And now, she was facing eviction. With no job, no savings, nowhere to go. The woman who had helped orchestrate, or at least benefited from, the loss of my home, was now facing the same fate. She was crying now, soft, broken sobs. I know I don't deserve it, Carol. After the house. How could I even ask? But I'm desperate. I don't know what to do, I thought. Maybe you could. I don't know. Help me? Or just tell me what to do. The old Carol would have immediately said, "Oh, Sarah, of course. Come stay with me. We'll figure it out." The old Carol would have been overcome with pity, forgetting her own pain in the face of someone else's crisis, especially someone who had once been family. The old Carol would have seen this as a chance to be the hero, the bigger person, to earn back a place in their lives, or maybe just ease the uncomfortable guilt that lingered from being hurt. But the new Carol felt still, quietly still. I listened to her cry. I heard the desperation, and I felt very little. Not pity, not triumph. Just a strange, calm emptiness where the frantic need to fix things used to be. This was it, the choice. The moment the universe seemed to have delivered, neatly wrapped in painful irony. I could step in. I could offer her a place to stay. I had a spare bedroom now, in this slightly larger, more permanent apartment I had moved into after securing a part-time job and getting back on my feet. I could give her money. I could guide her, help her find resources, be the savior she clearly hoped I would be. Or, I could recognize that this was not my responsibility, that her situation, while dire, was a consequence of choices made, behaviors exhibited, and a lack of accountability finally catching up. I could remember the sleepless nights, the humiliation of foreclosure, the years of financial struggle, the deep wound of my son's complicity and silence. I could remember that when I was desperate and alone, they had not helped me. They had vanished. Dr. Ramirez's words came back to me. Your worth is not tied to your ability to solve other people's problems. Boundaries are not cruel, they are self-preservation. You have the right to protect yourself, even from family. Sarah, I said, my voice still calm, steady. I hear you. It sounds like you are in a terrible situation. I am, she whispered. Please, Carol, just, what should I do? This was the moment. The moment to decide. The moment to be the old Carol, or the new one. Sarah, I said, and the words felt heavy, deliberate, like placing stones. What happened to your home? To my home? Because of the debt. It was devastating for me. It changed my life completely. I was alone. I had nowhere to go, no financial security. It took me a long, long time to rebuild my life, to feel safe again. I paused, letting the weight of that sink in. I wasn't saying it to make her feel guilty, although I knew the truth of it would land hard. I was saying it for me. To remind myself of the cost of their actions. When I was going through that, I continued, I didn't have anyone to turn to either. Mark didn't help. You didn't help. There was no apology, no understanding. Just silence. I had to figure it out on my own. I had to find a way to survive, to rebuild, with very little. Her breathing was ragged on the other end of the line. Sarah, I said, my voice softening slightly, not with pity, but with a somber clarity. You are in a crisis you told me you don't have anyone else to turn to for. Here it was, the pivot. Was I going to be her anyone? I know it's incredibly difficult, I said, but honestly, Sarah, I don't have the capacity to help you, not in the way you need, not after everything that happened. The financial impact on me was severe, and the emotional impact, that wound is still healing. I can't take on your problems. There was a stunned silence. I braced myself for pleading, for anger, for manipulation. You won't help me? She finally said, her voice thin with disbelief and pain. I can't, I repeated, firmly but without malice. I can't give you money, Sarah. I can't give you a place to stay. I have to protect my own security now. It's something I learned the hard way. But I have nowhere to go, she cried. Sarah, I said gently, when I was leaving my home with nowhere to go, I had to figure it out. I had to find resources. I had to ask for help from strangers, from government agencies, from places I never thought I'd have to. You have to do the same. I didn't offer advice on where to go. I didn't offer to make calls for her. That would still be me fixing it. I was stating the reality. She had to find her own way, just as I had. So that's it? She asked, her voice rising. You're just going to leave me? After everything? After everything I did for you? The unspoken words hung between us. After everything you took from me, those unspoken words were my shield. Sarah, I'm not leaving you. I clarified. You are experiencing the consequences of your own situation. It's not my responsibility to rescue you from it. I need to maintain the boundaries that keep me safe and stable now. There was a bitter laugh from her end. Safe? Stable? You sound so cold, Carol. I sound clear, Sarah, I countered, my voice unwavering. I spent years not being clear, not having boundaries, and it cost me everything. I can't go back to that. I can't believe you, she said, her voice hardening now, shifting from pleading to accusation. You're just going to let me be homeless? How can you be so cruel? Cruel. The word struck me, but it didn't land with the same force it once would have. Her calling me cruel for protecting myself was a reflection of her entitlement, not my character. It was the predictable deflection of someone who had always relied on others to cushion their fall. It's not cruel to protect myself, I said. It's necessary. I wish you well, Sarah. I truly do. I hope you find the help you need. But you could help me, she insisted. You have a spare room. You have some money now, don't you? What I have now, I earned back through hard work and relying on myself, I said. It's my security. I won't jeopardize that. So, you're just going to teach me a lesson? Her voice was sharp with anger now. Was I? I hadn't thought of it that way. My primary motivation wasn't vengeance or teaching a lesson. It was self-preservation. It was the refusal to re-enter a dynamic that had nearly destroyed me. But perhaps, yes, perhaps facing the reality of her situation without a safety net I provided was the lesson she needed. The lesson that actions have consequences, that exploiting others eventually catches up, that you cannot burn bridges and expect a clear path forward. I'm not doing this to teach you a lesson, Sarah. I said, though the thought resonated with a quiet truth. I'm doing this to take care of myself. It's a lesson I had to learn. Now you have to learn how to take care of yourself, too. There was a frustrated groan, then silence. I waited. The silence stretched, heavy with everything left unsaid, with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of her future. Finally, she spoke, her voice flat. "Fine, don't help me. I'll figure it out." "I believe you will, Sarah," I said, and I meant it. Not because I thought she was inherently capable, but because necessity is a powerful motivator. She would have to find her own strength, her own resources. "Goodbye, Carol." The line went dead. I hung up the phone slowly. My hand was shaking slightly, but it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from the adrenaline of standing firm, of holding my boundary. I leaned my head back against the wall, closing my eyes. It was over. The call I had perhaps subconsciously dreaded, and perhaps also, in a hidden corner of my heart, expected or even wanted, as some form of cosmic rebalancing. I felt a profound sense of release. It wasn't relief that Sarah was suffering. That would have been a different kind of toxicity. It was relief that I had not defaulted to the old patterns. I had not sacrificed myself again on the altar of family obligation and the desperate hope of approval or reconciliation that would never truly come on equal terms. I had chosen May. The days and weeks that followed were quiet. I didn't hear from Sarah again. I didn't seek out news of her. My focus was on my own life, the steady rhythm I had built. My part-time job at the local library, the small but comfortable apartment, my few trusted friends, my newfound peace in solitude and simple routines. I thought about Mark sometimes, my son. The pain there was different, deeper, tied to decades of love and hope, but even that pain had dulled with time and distance. He had made his choice, too, years ago, when he let his wife and his own needs eclipse mine so completely. He had chosen his path, and I had been forced onto a different one. Now, he was gone from Sarah's life too, perhaps repeating his pattern of avoidance and abandonment. It was a sad thought, but it no longer held the power to unravel me. I wasn't angry anymore, not with the consuming, destructive rage that had once festered inside me. There was just a quiet sadness for the family I had lost, or perhaps the family I had never truly had in the way I had imagined. The illusion of unconditional love and support had been shattered, but in its place, something real and unbreakable had formed. My own self-reliance, my own sense of worth independent of external validation. My life now is smaller in some ways, physically, financially, but it is larger in others, in peace of mind, in freedom from toxic dynamics, in the quiet satisfaction of having rebuilt my life on my own terms. I make my own decisions. I manage my own money, carefully and responsibly. I set my own boundaries, not out of anger, but out of a calm understanding of what is healthy and necessary for me. I learned that being kind or generous at the expense of yourself is not a virtue. It's a slow form of self-abandonment. I learned that family ties, no matter how strong the blood connection, can be severed by behavior, by a lack of respect, by a failure to cherish the relationship. And I learned that standing up for yourself, even when it's incredibly difficult and goes against a lifetime of programming, is the most powerful act of self-love. Did I teach Sarah a lesson? I don't know. I may never know what happened to her, or if she learned anything from her experience. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to survive, to heal, and to protect the life I had fought so hard to reclaim. Her journey is her own. My journey is mine. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, completely, and safely on my own path. The path I had built stone by stone, boundary by boundary. And it was enough. It was more than enough. So, that's my story. My name is Carol. I'm 68, and I'm here in my apartment in Milwaukee. It's not the home I grew up in, or the home I raised my son in. It's the home I built for myself, after everything was taken away. It's not grand, but it's mine. And that makes it the most valuable home I've ever had. If you've listened to my story, maybe you've seen pieces of your own journey in it. The pain of being betrayed by those you love, the struggle to find your voice, the slow, difficult process of setting boundaries and reclaiming your life. It's not an easy path, but it is a path worth walking. Finding your self-worth, independent of what others think or want from you, is a powerful thing. Learning to say no, clearly and without guilt, is a superpower. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to prioritize your own well-being, even if it disappoints someone else, especially if protecting yourself is necessary because they have shown they won't protect you. If you're going through something similar, know that you are not alone. Your feelings are valid, your pain is real, but so is your strength. You have the resilience within you to navigate this, to heal, and to build a life that is truly yours. Thank you for listening. If my story resonated with you, please consider giving this video a like. It helps more people find these kinds of stories and feel less alone. If you want to hear more about my journey or similar topics, subscribe to my channel, and feel free to share your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments below. It's a space for support and understanding. Remember, your peace is precious. Protect it fiercely. You are worth fighting for.